Good afternoon, everybody. Another week in the Missouri Senate. I won't describe it, but another week in the Missouri Senate. We were able to refer a tremendous number of bills today, and I'm sorry you had to sit through it for anybody who was paying attention that long. Lots and lots of conservative priorities in the pipeline now. IP reform, however many bills there were, I think there are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, something like that. IP reform, education reform, tort reform, tax reform, everything that I have is out of my hands and in the hands of the committee chairman. We'd love to get to next week and we have an education bill that we want to start talking about. Education reform, as everybody knows, is my top priority personally, not necessarily the priority of everyone's, but certainly of mine. And we have a bill on the calendar that we certainly would like to get to. So, we've got some gubernatorial appointments, obviously, that we have to get done by Thursday. We put some information up here for folks to see. I used the stat on the floor of 17 hours and 52 minutes that we've had on the floor. 16 hours and 45 minutes of that time has been on filibusters of things of no consequence whatsoever relative to a piece of policy. So we want to get to the point where we're talking about policy. This group behind me and the others that couldn't be up here are interested in getting to that point. So we wanted to refer those bills, get those bills to these committee chairmen who are going to send them through the process. We want to get those bills on the calendar, and we want to start talking about big things. I think we have no interest in killing now a larger slate, 40 plus, I think, of gubernatorial appointments, all of whom minus maybe 3 or 4 are non-paid volunteers. These are folks who, and I chair the committee. I get to hear the sponsoring senators who sponsor them, their stories, why they decided to get into service. It's pretty unfortunate they've been caught in the crossfire. I hope at some point folks will do the right thing and let them go, and we can figure out how to have a conversation on the policy that really matters for the people of Missouri. But we're going to get those bills out of committee, a lot of bills out of committee over the course of the next couple of weeks, and get them to the floor and start having conversations.
In addition to a PQ, what other tools or rule changes do you have at your disposal to keep the session on track?
Yeah, you obviously have the PQ. You do have the potential to change rules. I don't have any overarching desire to do either one of those things. I have stood up, and I'm proud of the fact that I've stood up for kind of the traditional order of this place. It doesn't always work right, but it works right most of the time, I think. Those would be last resorts, but I said it outside my office a couple of days ago. Everything has to be on the table. We have to be able to get back to the point where we're talking about policy and not talking about process, and in some cases talking about politics. So we'll do what needs to be done.
What does a rule change look like? Is it stopping filibustering?
Too early to tell. Yeah, we'd cross that bridge when we get there.
What did you think about the governor's State of the State yesterday? There wasn't many policies in there.
Yeah.
If anything, there was more budget items.
Yeah, I thought it was good. The governor, people asked me what I thought it was going to look like beforehand, and I think, what he did was largely what I expected. Tout some really important wins. He came in at a tremendously volatile time and really did stabilize the ship. He won't go down in history as the loudest governor or the guy that grabbed the headlines every time he could. But he did a lot of good things for the people of Missouri. He never got too far out in front of the legislature, which, as someone who's been here for the entirety of his duration and been a part of other, administrations who didn't respect the legislature, I appreciated that. But he touted the wins, and there are a bunch of them. And there are some things that you may not agree with from a policy perspective, but certainly the resume and the things that he'll be able to take with him when he leaves, I think, is laudable. So I appreciate his service, and I thought it was a good speech.
This is more of a process question about the gubernatorial appointments, but You mentioned that, what, a Thursday or Friday deadline of next week?
Yeah, I think it's the second, so whatever whatever day that's a week from today.
So
I
if this
think.
isn't resolved by then, could like the governor withdraw his appointees and just renominate them? Because I understand your point about most of them being volunteers, but a couple of them are like department heads that are doing pretty complex work.
Yeah.
And changing them midstream could actually like harm people.
Yeah.
What would happen?
Yeah, so the possibilities if we, get up into a deadline would be, we aren't able to take action on them, and if that doesn't happen, then they are permanently banned from being able to serve in that capacity, which to your point would be, incredibly harmful for DHSS and DSS, with department heads who are there, have been serving, have been doing that. The governor could withdraw them. We would have to approve that withdrawal. And could reappoint them, and then their clock would basically start over, and we'd have to approve them by the end of the regular
As
session.
a follow-up, what is the functional difference between like the Department of Social Services and Department of Mental Health directors just being acting until Parson leaves? Like, would there be any functional difference if that ends up happening?
If they're in an acting role, they get to serve. The one key difference would be if they are withdrawn. Right now, if you're appointed in an interim capacity, you get to continue to serve. So the Robert Nadell, Director Nadell, Paula Nicholson, they have been serving in that capacity because they were interim appointments. If they are withdrawn and brought back as a regular session appointee, they would not be able to serve until such time that they were confirmed. So then they would have to step away from their duties until we got them confirmed or some action was taken.
Why did you refer all those bills before going to gubernatorial appointments?
Well, it was meant to be a show of good faith that obviously wasn't greeted in kind.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think my deal that I have set forth since the beginning of this entire charade was I'll refer every bill if we can get these gubernatorial appointments done. I think, traditionally in this place, both of those things are fairly inconsequential, right? Just the referral of bills is not incredibly, big or lauded. And usually gubernatorial appointments, with a couple of exceptions that we can remember over the last couple of years, nobody pays much attention to it. So from my perspective, it's not worthy of these big, great, grand deals. We're just asking folks to let us do some small stuff, and then we move on.
The petition now in the process with all of this going on?
All the IPs, all the SJRs, and like I said, there are a number of them have been referred to Senator Gannon's Committee of Local Government Elections, where they were referred last year.
They've actually demanded that IP be passed out of the Senate into the House before they let these gubernatorial appointments go.
Well, because of their actions, it's actually not possible now. So, the delay tactics actually worked against. They were actually working against themselves the entire time. I haven't talked to Senator Gannon. I'm sure we'll have hearings on these things in very short order, like we would have if it had been referred last Monday.
On Tuesday, Senator Eigel said there are really three groups of Republican senators. There's the Freedom Caucus, there's the leadership group, who he says is more aligned with Democrats. I can't remember exactly what he said. But then he said most of the Senate Republicans are in the middle and will eventually side or follow whichever of the other two groups comes out on top. Essentially was the that's not direct quote.
Well, I don't like the us versus them. I don't like the labels, but I got a lot more people standing behind me than they do.
And just to follow up, there's social media posts flying around putting your photo next to Senator Mitt Romney, kind of accusing you of being a rhino or a soft Republican.
Yeah.
What do you say to that accusation?
Well, I would say what I said on the floor today. I think the chances of me being elected statewide as the Secretary of State are much better than the chances of Senator Eigel being elected governor. So we're going to figure out what the will of Missouri is in August.
On the question of timing of IP reform, would it be your preference that Missourians vote on that in August, and then if the proponents of the abortion legalization amendment get enough signatures, it would be voted in November?
Well, you know, I mean, I don't have a say in it for one thing. I think, you know, there are political realities to any of these decisions, right? Obviously, there's some. I have been given now 2 memos, one from a Republican attorney, one from I don't actually know if it was who it originally was from, but that said because this process started. And the abortion process of gathering signatures started under this current, you know, kind of structure, that even if IP reform were to go to the ballot in August and pass to change the threshold, to change to a concurrent majority, that the court would probably allow them to live under the old rules in November. So that's obviously all conjecture based on, you know, what attorneys think, and they get paid to say whatever needs to be said in some cases. So I'm not using that as the letter of the law. But it's interesting to think about. And also, you know, just from taking those 2 things away, or taking the abortion initiative petition out of the equation for a second, you know, if one or both of these things is on a November ballot, you know, I don't think it has a tremendous impact on statewide elections because Missouri's a pretty red state, but I certainly think it has a tremendous impact on, you know, pivotal kind of swing elections in St. Louis County, Boone County, Greene County, and some of the places that we know those swing districts are.
So you would rather abortion go on in August based off of what you just said?
It's the governor's call.
Do you want it to go on the ballot at all? I know you said after the Ohio vote last year that you didn't think something like that would pass here.
Well, I think, and I haven't, full disclosure, dug into the language of the initiative now that is receiving, that they're gathering signatures on. I mean, I think I like where Missouri is relative to our pro-life laws. I obviously was a part of passing the heartbeat bill that led us to where we are. You know, I said all along, if the pro-choice advocates got greedy with what they thought was possible in what I think is a 60% pro-life state, then they would probably lose. I think there's some scenario where you could put something on the ballot that loosens our restrictions that could probably pass. Where that line is, I don't really know. If it gets on the ballot, it gets on the ballot. I'm going to vote no and support, you know, a lot of the stuff that we've done. But that process is, you know, largely outside of my hands.
Is there, I know again, this is the governor's call, and we asked him, and he said it's hypothetical, but is there any scenario you could foresee where, like, you pass IP reform really quickly and there's like a special election before the August primary? Or would you not really want that because it would cost money and it would be?
Well, again, there's variables to all of this, right? We could pass it tomorrow. The governor would still have to call the election, right? He hasn't given us any indication that he would. He obviously could, but I mean, you're right, and he's right. It's a hypothetical that, you know, I'm not sure is going to end up being reality. Maybe one more?
All right,
Easy.
guys.